8 games into the season, the biggest takeaways from the Bucks, are they mostly negative? We dig into the details coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network. You can hear Camille as an analyst on our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. We thank all of you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. If you have not done so already, like and subscribe. Tell a friend as well. It helps us immensely. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. If that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Camille, the last time you spoke here, it was upbeat and pretty happy with the recap of the Raptors game. Not a whole lot to pick apart with that one. I was curious how many times we'd see that happen this year because, you never want to judge a team on their best game and their worst game. And to date, I guess I would say, would you say the Warriors game or the Knicks game were their best game? Just considering you didn't have Giannis for the Warriors game, obviously, but how you looked against an Eastern Conference foe with Giannis against the Knicks. One of those two, your best game, obviously. Your worst game, I'm going to guess it was Tuesday in Toronto so far. But I wondered how many of these games where the Bucks are roadkill are we going to see? We saw a decent amount of them the past few years, but would the youth have anything to do with a reduction of that? So far, 8 games in, we've seen 1. So does that mean we're on pace for 10?
I have no idea what we're on pace for, but what I do know is that that's not going to. I mean, fatigue happens. Let's be very clear. We know how second night back-to-backs go. But as I was highlighting, like the upcoming stretch for the Bucks, 6 games in 9 days, like there's going to be fatigue here as well, but they're going to need to perform over this next slate of games. So I hope it ain't, it ain't necessarily 10 games where you see like, dang, here they go being roadkill, but they're going to have to figure that part out when it comes to playing through tired legs, just trying to find that energy somewhere. Maybe that's on Doc in the rotations in the games on the second night, but back-to-back of like, hey, we know you went hard yesterday. We're going to try to find ways to steal minutes here and there, but ultimately, it happens from time to time. It's a long season. It's going to happen. You don't want it to happen. And especially with what they have coming up, you hope to see more fresh legs throughout the course of a game, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, fatigue is certainly a part of it. Wasn't easy. It was night 2 of a back-to-back. It's a Raptors team too that if you're playing on a back-to-back, that's not one of the teams you want to play with the style that they play. Bucks didn't arrive into Toronto until 2:30 in the morning. I don't think it was a back-to-back that we saw, at least not entirely. They did. Their shots that they missed were for the most part short. So yes, that's part of it. But there's been some problematic trends with this team so far through these 8 games. You mentioned the 6 games in 9 days coming up. I mean, it's even worse than that if we cherry pick it a bit and get past the Cup game against the Bulls. You got 2 back-to-backs then in a 5-game span where you're playing 5 games in 7 days, starting with the Rockets game on Sunday. So this is going to be another interesting test for this group, not only how they respond after 2 days off against a red-hot Bulls team that just erased a 24-point deficit against the Sixers and has the best record in the Eastern Conference, but then some of the other matchups that you're going to have on that schedule, notably the Houston Rockets on there. I'm just curious to see how they respond. And, when we said there's some things that are starting to be problematic, I think there's a couple areas we can begin with there, but it all kind of leads into one for me. So I guess let's start defensively.
Okay.
I think we were all aligned coming into the season on roughly where the defense would rank. I know Frank and I don't remember where you were on this. Frank and I both said, I think I see the upside of this team being really good offensively, and hopefully the defense is just above, better than league average, basically. And that's what we saw through the first 5 games of the season, right? 5 or 6 games, something like that. Your defense was borderline good, but your offense is what fueled you. As we sit here today, Thursday morning, the Bucks have the 20th rated defense in the league, and their net rating is slumped all the way down to basically net neutral at a 0.9. Offense has still been good for this team, but the defensive numbers, 9th best offense in the league, tied with the Bulls, who you play on Friday. 9th best offense in the league. Defense, though, it's starting to feel like, man, this is kind of what we saw 2 years ago before a change was made.
A little bit. And that Raptors game that they just played definitely tanked some of these numbers, with that being a 28-point loss for the Bucks. But
there's a couple that were very jarring.
Yeah. But to your point about where the defense is currently at, even coming into the game against the Raptors, when you're looking like, okay, well, the Bucks defense was still I think 15, 16, they were kind of middle of the pack before that Raptors.
They were 7. Yeah, they went from, I think, 12th to 17th after the Kings game.
Yeah, but I think that's a trend we've seen over the last couple of games here. That Sacramento game stands out to me. This game against the Raptors stands out to me, where the defense just isn't good enough. And it's a few different things that you can see happening. One, again, we've talked about this in the offseason with us loving the idea of starting Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and AJ Green. It was the offensive fit, right? It was the spacing that you're going to be able to get with those three being on the court, and letting the offense flourish that way. A concern we had defensively was saying hey, these are bad defenders, because I think all three of them can hold their own for the most part. It's just that there's a size disadvantage that you're going to see from time to time. AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., various guys were trying to check Brandon Ingram. He didn't have a great game, but when he was able to get to his spots, it's just it's hard to stop somebody when they give you, they're 5-6 inches taller than you, despite how good of defense that you're playing. It's just a height thing at the end of the day there. So I think that's been a piece of it. The fouling aspect for the Milwaukee Bucks, been a lot of fouls for them, to the point where opposing teams come in they're going to have a great free throw rate against the Bucks with how games are being officiated. And then on top of that, too, the rebounding aspect of it, of just not being able to end possessions, and then getting back on offense yourself. So all of these different factors have been playing in, where it's just been feeling kind of hey, we got to figure out what we're doing in these areas and kind of shore that up going forward.
There's a lot. You mentioned that I want to tackle one by one, and I mentioned it all kind of leads into one for me. So some of those ugly numbers from the Raptors game, but the trends that we've seen, especially defensively in one other area through these first 8 games. How do the Bucks course correct this? We'll dig into that coming up next. Well, let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR, so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one, remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price. It means no surprise charges at the end of the month. That's things you can look forward to here. Their automated tools offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits to save you hours every single week. And knowing you can reach certified HR experts anytime gives you real peace of mind. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/lockedonnba and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, 3 months free at gusto.com/lockedonnba. One more time, that's gusto.com/lockedonnba. All right, so let's just wrap up that Raptors game first. the Bucks, so this is kind of off topic, but the Bucks have the best half-court offense in the league so far. Which, we expected the offense to be better. I would have expected that to come with on a team that had Giannis and Damian Lillard, and not so much a group where we said, hey, they're going to try to run, get in transition, get threes up. But, it just, I think, kind of speaks to what we mentioned before. They're doing things differently. You're seeing more movement from this group on and off the ball. And Doc Rivers has really emphasized passing. We got to move it from side to side. And there was one point during the Raptors game, too, where I know he had said, like, that second unit's in, I want to see, and Giannis mentioned this too, I want to see every single guy touching the ball. I don't want to see this stick. So I'm not surprised their half-court offense has been better. I did not expect it to be the best in the league to date at 107 for an offensive rating. The Raptors are fifth best in the league at 101.3. But going back to that game, you surrendered a 131.1 offensive rating. And we said the Raptors have been good in the half court offensively, but you gave up a 115.8 half court defensive rating there to the Raptors. The league average is 96, and we just said where Toronto ranks at 101. That to me was the troubling part, because there was so much emphasis put on Toronto wants to run, they want to pressure the ball, force turnovers, and score in transition. They did get some fast break advantages, but their transition game, wasn't notable in that. So the fact that they were beating you in the half court, when you theoretically are supposed to have the defense that you want and be able to be set, that was one of the bigger troubling things to me from this game. And I just think it comes back to what we've seen a lot of so far this season, and that's rebounding. I mean, the Raptors weren't great on the defensive glass or offensive glass. They were certainly better than the Bucks, and every opponent has done that so far. They've won offensive rebounding, beating the Bucks in their defensive rebounding. The Raptors had, I think, just under a 30% offensive rebounding rate. We've seen other teams much higher so far this season. And to me, that is where the defensive issues have started for the Bucks, the inability to not close out possessions. And, we spent a lot of time in the offseason talking about who is going to defend bigger wings. And I think we took that as who is going to limit shot making for those opponents. And you just had this idea that because you got Giannis and Miles Turner, you're going to be fine rebounding the basketball. So who's just going to hold up and force tough shots? I think what we've seen is that's where the Bucks are getting beaten routinely on the defensive glass, that opponents are grabbing offensive rebounds against their wings. The Raptors didn't have any of them at those positions, but in the previous 7 games, the Bucks wings had surrendered 22 offensive rebounds. So and 0 to account for them. And these are all areas where you give opponents second chances, it's going to come back to bite you. So the idea of this offense is one thing, but when you got a team outside of Giannis and Miles Turner that's all basically 6'4", this is what the other issue could be.
It can, and it has been so far, because there were even possessions where I remember seeing Gary Trent Jr. boxing out, and someone's just over his back, just grabbing the board and having a second chance opportunity.
And AJ had one of those too.
Yeah, where it's just like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing technically by boxing out, but 6'4" against 6'9" or 6'10", like it's just a hard axe to do. And in the Toronto game in particular, it felt like some of the defensive rotations were a step slow for them in this game as well. And when that's happening, in addition with the rebounding, in addition with Toronto getting out on fast break, scoring off of Bucks turnovers, you had all that going against the Bucks. And then on top of that, the 3-ball wasn't falling for Milwaukee. Like, it's a game where both Toronto and Milwaukee ended up with the exact same amount of 3-point attempts in this game. And that's not what you expect from Toronto and Milwaukee. Like, heading into that game against Toronto, the Bucks were 12th in 3-point attempts. The Raptors were 24th in 3-point attempts, with the Bucks averaging about 39, the Raptors averaging about 32. So I do say shout out to Toronto, because I thought they did a pretty good job of trying to run the Bucks off the line throughout the game. But when the Bucks were getting good looks, they weren't falling for them. So when you go into a game there and both teams take 38 shots, but the Raptors make like 6 or 7 more than you do, that's a tough game for you, because that said, you already had the rebounding disadvantage. You already were getting the fast break disadvantage. So many different things were working against them. And then the 3 ball, which can be a great equalizer, wasn't falling. So they weren't able to equalize much of anything in that game against Toronto.
They, as we sit here now, have a 47.6 rebounding rate, which is 25th in the league. That is total rebounds. The Bucks have routinely been one of the best rebounding teams in the league because of their defensive rebounding. I mean, for 7-8 years, they've never been an offensive rebounding team. There was 1 year under Bud where they really did emphasize it, but other than that, they've always been in the bottom 10 or worse, but they've been elites rebounding the ball defensively, and that's led to pretty good team rebounding numbers for your total figures there. So 25th in the league in rebounding rate at 47, 48. So basically 48% of the time, less than half of those shots you're getting. The opponent is getting more of them. But the defensive rebounding numbers, this is a team that finished, third last year. They've routinely been a top 5 team there. Right now, the Bucks have a 67.9% defensive rebounding rate, which is 20th in the league. League leaders are the Knicks, who are 77. I believe the Bucks were around 75 last year, and that's really where you want to be. 60-some%. I mean, it's jarring, and the numbers have been better with Giannis and Miles Turner on the floor, but not noticeably better. And, you just look at the starting unit here as of right now, at least, Ryan Rollins, AJ Green, Gary Trent Jr., Giannis, and Miles Turner. That group has a 67.9% defensive rebounding rate. So right where you are on average, that's what that team is doing. And that just, if it's not already there, I think it's going to start to lead to a louder conversation from some circles of, do we need to revisit what we're doing here at the wing? And do we need to put one other bigger player out there? Now, the problem is, who is it? And if it's not here, how do you obtain that? But so far through 8 games, that seems clear as day. Is right now the Bucks' biggest problem is they are too small outside of Giannis and Miles Turner.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. And the thing with that is like, okay, well, if that's going to be the case, then like offensively, you really got to make sure that you're bringing it so that you can kind of boat race these teams here. If you're just not able to end as many defensive possessions as you would hope to without allowing second chance opportunities for teams, which is thinking about like how this team is constructed and certain lineups that we've seen so far. Like against Toronto, the first game where AJ Green did not play the fourth quarter, and I believe it was Taurean Prince that closed that particular game out to give them a little bit more size. And it's not like Taurean Prince is known as like a fierce rebounder, although he has that classic rebounding quote from college about going, you see the ball, you go after the ball, you grab it, you come down with it. It's a question, because some of the guys on this team who I was like, hey, it's going to be a lot on you to try to rebound for this team going forward. Giannis, of course, and he's leading the team in rebounds. There was the Miles Turner question of like, hey, by the numbers, he doesn't tend to grab a lot, which Bucks fans were, making a jokes of, well, we have Brook Lopez. We're used to that. But again, what Brook Lopez was able to do was allow the team to rebound better while he was on the court, boxing guys out, allowing other guys to get that rebound. But even like a Bobby Portis, who's not even playing 20 minutes a game so far this season, but Bobby and Kuz in particular are the two that I'm looking at off the bench, where it's like we need a lot more rebounding and like that dirty work from you. Like Cole Anthony has been out there trying to do what he can as a guard, but he's still 6'1", just trying to steal opportunities. And I think from some of those bigs, which can be difficult too when you're stretching the floor out, not necessarily by the rim, as shots go out, or you're defending guys who are playing more perimeter oriented. You're just not close to the rim. But like when they're checking into the game, those two in particular, Kuz and BP, like I want the rebounding to be like, I need them attacking those boards for this team.
Yeah, and that has not been the case. With that group on the floor, it hasn't been any different. With Kuzma and Bobby Portis on the floor, it is a 68.5% defensive rebounding rate. Perhaps the biggest issue is coming from Bobby Portis. So there's some numbers to dig into there and some other numbers for the starting five that we've seen so far from the Bucks. We'll dig into those and what the plan of attack is for this group. How do you pivot from here? We'll do so next on Locked On Bucks. NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so this is not a pile-on Bobby Portis attempt here. This is a safe space. But the eye test would tell you it hasn't been good so far this season. It's been a very rough start to the season for Bobby Portis, and the numbers back that up. Certainly Bobby's individual numbers has not been efficient so far. Just hasn't been able, for whatever reason, to find his shooting stroke here this season from any range. You think about the mid-range, his turnarounds that he's worked on, three-pointers, none of it has really fallen. I mean, he's shooting 39% from the floor, 34% on threes. The only positive offensively so far for Bobby Portis would be that he's hit both of his free throws that he's taken. But it's been a rough start, to put it mildly, for Bobby. You mentioned the minutes are much lower than, or lower, I should say, than we've seen for Bobby here, under 20 minutes a game. I don't know how much of that has made it difficult for him to get into a rhythm. I don't know how much of it either is that, quite frankly, this team has kind of changed around him, where I don't know if I'm willing to say, I don't know if Bobby Portis fits on this team. I'm not saying that, but Kyle Kuzma's play style suits this team and the way they are currently playing more so than Bobby. And I think you would be hard-pressed to find anyone that tells you Bobby Portis has been more effective or better than Kyle Kuzma so far this season. I mean, think about that statement 5 or 6 months ago. But with Bobby, with Bobby on the floor, you mentioned, like, that's where I need to see some of the rebounding numbers. It's been the same, right? So, like, that's the other troubling part, is we can pick apart any of these and, well, what does it look like with this player? What does it look like with this player? I mentioned with Giannis and Miles Turner specifically on the floor, the numbers are better, but it's not like markedly better. Every other way you slice it, you keep coming back to, it's about the same. It's a 69% defensive rebounding rate in those minutes that he's on the floor, but you got a 119.9 defensive rating in those moments, and your offense hasn't been good enough because the stretch 5 or 4 component of Bobby, he hasn't hit those shots this season. So everywhere you look, there's not one guy that's helping you out on the glass so far, it seems. That I don't know what the easy fix is. Like a couple weeks ago, we had the discussion of what happens when Kevin Porter Jr. comes back. Do you make a shift and keep Ryan Rollins in the starting lineup? I mean, that's certainly something to debate, but the longer this goes on, the more you really have to consider, like, do you have to move like Taurean Prince back in the starting lineup or something like that just to get more size out there for the time being?
Yeah, and it's a question that's going to have to be thrown out there and evaluated, I think, because the Bobby Portis aspect of it, right? Like the nickname Bobby Buckets, because you expect Bobby to be able to go out there, create his own shots, get some buckets. And as you mentioned, the shots have not been falling for him so far early in the season. Like if everything held the way that the numbers are currently, this would be the lowest field goal percentage of his entire career. From the field, not like from three, but just from the field in general, from Bobby Portis, what we haven't seen from him. And more than anything, like you can't control when shots go in and out. You can just control your process, try to make sure it's a good shot selection. So for Bobby, that's what I'm mostly worried about. Like, hey, just keep taking good shots. Don't force it. Try not to get frustrated with how things have been going. Keep it moving that way. But what I really need from Bobby, not Bobby buckets as much. I need Bobby boards. Like I need Bobby to be on the glass. Like that's first priority. Because like I said, you can't control whether the shot goes in and out, but you can control your energy on the defensive glass. You can control your energy when you're playing defense. So that's the area from Bobby in particular where I'm like, hey, get back to that. Because I think it was the championship year or the year, somewhere around there, where Bobby was giving you like 9 boards a game, where it's like, he can do it. It's just like opportunity role. And I know in those seasons he played a lot more minutes. The year after the championship without Brook Lopez, he was out there playing a lot of minutes, but like we just need Bobby to kind of get back to the dirty work, like get back to being that guy of doing the little things here, and the shot will eventually fall. Like I'm not someone who's like, oh, you got to stop shooting. Shooters got to shoot. So Bobby, I need Bobby to keep shooting. If anything, when he gets those threes, don't hesitate, let it go continuously. But the boards, more than anything, that's where I really want to see Bobby like get busy, because we even saw it last year when he was out, how the Bucks struggled rebounding without Bobby Portis. Like we need that from Bobby on this team.
I think it's going to be a tough adjustment for this whole team. I agree with you that shooters need to shoot, but it needs to be applied to the right context. Like this team has tried to move away from ISO ball, back to the basket, 1 pass, 0 passes. That's it. That's how we're going to play here. And, again, this can sound like you're picking on Bobby Portis. He's excelled with that type of game. So I want him to take the right shots, but he has to take those shots. And for a lot of these guys, it's about embracing a different role, right? And for Bobby, to your point, that role is probably now like, we want you to take open shots, but we really need you to control things on the glass and bring that energy and be that type of guy. The same way you started to carve out this niche and this role with this team. That's what we need, because this is going to be more egalitarian here that we're playing offensively. As we mentioned after every game, just about, different second leading scorer, the number of guys that they're going to have in double figures. Like this isn't going to be Giannis and Dame are each scoring 25 to 30 points. And then this other guy was decent and Bobby Portis had 10 off the bench. It's like, we're not doing that anymore. So it's going to be learning and leaning into new roles for this group. But yeah, I mean, the rebounding is the biggest thing for this team that just, it has to improve, because as much as there was good that we saw in the start of the season, and there's still I know good. This may sound like a doomer episode here. You're still 5-3 with the expectations that were coming into this season. You had wins against the Knicks, the Golden State Warriors. You've only had one ugly game on both ends of the floor, and that was, in Toronto on night 2 of a back-to-back. So the sky is not falling. Having said that, it's going to be a different conversation if these rebounding numbers linger throughout the season, because I do think if that's the case, that caps what the ceiling can be on this team. And that, I mean, if that's what you're going to do, rebounding the ball, it's going to lead to some big defensive deficiencies. And if that's the case, at best, you're probably a 42-43 win team.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with you on that. And I think when you're talking about this Bucks team, we're talking about margin of errors, right? And it was like, hey, for this squad, margin of error is probably not that great because of just how the team is constructed. But that's not necessarily something like, well, because of that, there's no way this team can win, because we saw it. Like I was mentioning in the offseason, like maybe we're overthinking it, because we know Giannis plus shooters works. Like it's just a formula that works. And the Bucks have that in droves with this particular team right now. So again, a 5-3 start after being what were we last year? What 2-6,
1-7 through this point.
So like it's a remarkable difference from how this team got started last year to how they started this year. This year's squad, from talking to other people, from watching it myself, it's a fun basketball team to watch because of their style of play. But if this is a team that wants to, have a deep playoff run, there are certain things, as we mentioned here, that just need to be corrected. The rebounding, I think, is a big point of it. In addition to that, like I said, the margin for error is kind of small for this team. And I understand that the Bucks are trying to establish themselves as a physical defensive team. But the whistles just haven't gone their way in that regard yet. And in training camp, you heard AJ Green make mention of the fact that, hey, there are some calls we're going to be okay with getting. Like some fouls we're going to get because we're trying to establish something. My question watching this team and the Giannis whistle in accordance with that is like, how long will it take for refs to start to respect the defense that this Bucks team is playing, if at all that comes? Like, that's another piece of it too, where it's like they haven't been able to rebound as securely, but they're also fouling a lot. So they're putting other teams on the free throw line and they're not getting to the free throw line a lot too. A lot of that, you lose Damian Lillard, who was a magician at getting to the free throw line, being paired next to Giannis. And this year, Giannis not getting as many calls over the last few games as it seems. We saw Doc kind of have a little mini crash out, but then be a little bit more reserved after the Toronto game, the most recent one. But like the Bucks have to win on the margins. Like that has to also happen in addition to the threes flying and all that other stuff. That they got to be that team that embraces that dirty work. And it could, like we said, do they have the answer on the roster right now? Maybe. We'll see. But it's going to be on the coaching staff to try to figure out the best configuration to get the best outcome here.
You're right. It was 2-6 through the first 8 games last season. They were 1-6 at this point 1 year ago today. And again, that's kind of the point, is the competitiveness of this team. Doc even was pretty short but sweet after the Raptors game and said, we just didn't have it tonight.
Yeah.
Mentioned back-to-back was a part of it. There was some other things as we've outlined as well, but that's the one instance of it this year. Last year, game 2, it was only 11 was the margin of defeat to the Bulls. It felt worse than that. It was not pretty. A couple of days later, you go to Brooklyn, you lose by double digits to a really bad Nets team. I don't think the Bucks ever led in that game either. Then just a couple of days after that, you had the disaster in Memphis where you were just completely mangled by the Grizzlies on Halloween. You had another one of those in a back-to-back against the Knicks. So this was the norm for large stretches of last year, where this team just was not competitive. And, it's a small sample size, but we've only got one of those to speak through. So that's the silver lining of sorts here. But yeah, the rebounding has to improve. The last thing you mentioned, we don't have time to really dig into. We'll get into it on a future show, because I think it's a larger, broader conversation about what we've seen league-wide, too, is...
Yeah, fouls are up.
the free throws, yeah. Like, fouls are up. I wonder how much of that has to do with more and more teams are pressing in the backcourt. If you get beat, you got to foul, or you're fouling at the point of attack. So we're seeing more and more free throws across the league now. A lot has been made. The only thing I'll say on it, we'll save it for a new show, a lot was made over that 2-game stretch where the Bucks gave up 78 free throws to the opponents. Not great, but the Bucks also have to start making free throws.
Yes.
Because right now they are dead last in free throw efficiency at 69.4%. So we can complain, and Giannis does not get a good whistle. Nobody is going to deny that. You have to make your own free throws too, because that's another area you circle. Offensive rebounds and second chance points off of turnovers, free throws. Circle those areas after every game and point to, well, that's probably where we lost this game. NBA Cup returns tomorrow night. The Bulls come to Milwaukee. They're a good rebounding team, Camille, and they're a better free throw shooting team than the Bucks. But it should be a fun one with the Red Hot Bulls and the Bucks defending the Cup. We'll have a recap of that one coming your way on Saturday in what figures to be a lively atmosphere inside of Fiserv Forum. That'll do it for today. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.